Hello? Is is anybody there? Oh my god. Is that a listener? Oh dear sweet Jesus, there's a listener. Oh, oh god. Ma! I'm one of the people. I'm one of the people who got a listener. Oh wow. I always thought I'd just be one of those people who got zero views on all their podcasts. Wow. Well, I'm sorry about that intro. I just really wanted to have some fun lately because it's been very not fun being in America. But whatever, I've got a small little video, not video, but something to listen to nip at the buds while I'm creating something for Thursday. But welcome to the BenAF podcast. I'm your host, BenAF. And this, folks, is the first ever episode of the BenAF podcast. I am so stoked for this to finally be happening. Trust me, maybe I'll go into depth about it later, but this has been about a month and a half in the works, and we are finally here on the first edition of the BenAF podcast. And you know what? This is the first ever Top 10 Tuesday. Top 10 Tuesday. That is not an actual little song that I made. I just did that with my mouth right now. But so I should probably explain that this is probably not going to be coming out on Tuesday just because I wanted my anniversary of this show to be June 1st because it's easier. So, just expect these to be coming out on Tuesdays, not on Mondays. Just the first edition's a Monday edition. But yeah, this top 10 list, as listed as the title, is top 10 things you need to know about the BenAF podcast and its host, BenAF. And so let's just go ahead and get right down into it. Number 10, my name is not, in fact, BenAF. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I started out this podcast on a lie. It's despicable and disgusting. And truly, I'm already ashamed of this podcast. It's just, I started off on the wrong note, and let me try again with the truth. My name is Benjamin Alexander Frazier. Yeah, that's the truth. We just condensed it down to BenAF because I think that gets at the heart of the show. It's Ben as fuck. Definitely. I think anyone who listens to this and listens to all the projects that I've got going on is like, wow, this is so Ben as fuck. Sorry, Grandma, if you listen to that. Maybe I'll send you a censored version because I love you. But yeah, that's the heart of the show. It's just a really cool title, and I really like it. A person very near and dear to my heart came up with it. My mother, my mom. Oh, I love my mommy. My mom's great. Yeah, just the best. But number 9, I'm an essential worker. Oh yeah, this podcast is run by an essential worker who runs at an essential store. One that, as much as he loves the people that work there, man, does it kind of dampen the soul. I know you guys probably feel what I feel. If you are a minimum wage worker or anything close to it, you understand why I'm doing this. You understand why I'm making this show, because I've got a passion and I love to speak and I love broadcasting, and there's nothing more that I'd rather be than a mix between Bill Simmons and Howard Stern. I'll get to that later. But yeah, I just think, why not? I'm only 20, and again, that's something that we can get into later. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, I'm an essential worker, which means that if you don't like this podcast, then you're crapping on an essential worker, and I hope that you know that. I hope that every time an ad comes up where they tell you to appreciate an essential worker, if you click off of this podcast without giving it a like or a rating or a share, that means you're crapping on an essential worker. I want you to know that, and I want you to feel very guilty about it. All right, and number 8, the podcast sprang up as a result of a personal renaissance. And what I mean by that is that, man, it really sucks to say, but the last 2 months of my life have been amazing. They have been a time of a lot of personal growth, and a lot of greatness has come out of it. I shouldn't say greatness, but, just a lot of fun things have come out of it. And it sucks that while my 2 months of awesomeness has been happening, the United States seems to be crumbling. And yeah, again, I'll detail that more on Thursday. But yeah, I just this podcast basically sprang up as I've been talking about doing a podcast for 2 years, but these last 2 months have been the only time that I've ever really felt like really doing it. So I gave myself a date. I said June 1st was when the podcast needs to come out. And look at this. The podcast is coming out. It's crazy, right? Number 7. I am a huge fan of media of all styles and sizes, all shapes and sizes. I'm a huge fan of radio. Of course, Howard Stern comes to mind, but also the Two Guys Named Chris show. Great show, fantastic show. You should listen to it. But I'm also a big fan of podcasting. I'm a big fan of Bill Simmons and Joe Rogan, and I love listening to all those guys. Really big fans of them. There's a show called Deep Fat Fried that I'm a big fan of. Very influential in how I do my style. All those guys. I love books. I recently just read a book on Abraham Lincoln called The Fiery Trial. A great book, a fantastic book that has definitely enlightened me to how to play both sides and get rid of slavery while also appeasing slave owners. It's a tightrope. It's a tightrope, and it's a really good read. And then I switched to Bill Simmons' Book of Basketball, another fantastic book. Even if you're not even interested in basketball itself, listening to Bill Simmons or whatever, if you want to listen to it in audio form, I didn't. I read the book, but it's just completely fascinating. I would recommend getting the hardcover edition, or the hardcover, not the hardcover, the second edition, which is not a hardcover, because the hardcover doesn't have as many footnotes and it doesn't have some extra stuff in there. But it's awesome. It's fantastic. Brilliant from Bill, as always. And I'm also reading Private Parts from Howard Stern right now, which is another great book that really kind of gets overshadowed by the movie, because I think people just immediately assume that you're talking about the movie. Even Amazon does. But the book is awesome so far. I think it's a little weird because it came out in the 90s and it's kind of like light on content, but I think there's a lot to glean from Howard Stern and why he did the things that he did. It's it's been awesome to read. I also am a big consumer of YouTube. YouTube is awesome. It really has inspired me to try to do something on my own, because I've been looking back at some of the people that I love listening to the most, and man, do they have some rough first videos. Good Lord, every first video is terrible, and if it's not terrible, that means they deleted their real first video. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that. But moving on to number 6. I'm a college dropout. Wow, I couldn't even read my own handwriting. Sounds exactly like a dropout. Yeah, I dropped out of college half a year ago because I didn't feel like I was getting the most out of it, and I didn't want to keep wasting my parents' money. Now, that sounds like a roundabout way of saying that I got kicked out, but I didn't. Yeah, they tried to do that after the first semester, and then my second semester was me trying to basically not screw up, which I did, and actually recovered my grades to the point where they were like, yeah, come back. And after my third semester, I left basically 3/4 of the way through my third semester just being like, I don't care about this. This is not going to help me do what I want to do with the rest of my life. So after 6 months of soul searching, we finally came upon this. So yeah, time to move on to number 5. My inspirations. Well, my inspirations are very kind of, I've already pretty much covered them. Like I have borrowed heavily from I wouldn't say borrowed, but I'm heavily inspired by Bill Simmons and Howard Stern. Just, those guys are funny and they're really interesting. Howard Stern is quite possibly one of the most innovative people I've ever listened to. Just that guy to me, and I don't want to like psychoanalyze him, but he kind of seems like he was a genius who was trapped by his own genius, in the fact that he realized early on that provoking people sells. And it's the reason why he was the first person in radio to ever simultaneously hold number 1 in New York, Chicago, and LA. But it's also why his fans hate him now, is because he's tried to shift his content to something else. His fans don't really seem to like it. So, but it seems like he's really enjoying it now, and I'm happy that he is. I really am. He's such a big inspiration, and even that move is a big inspiration. I mean, it takes gall to leave what you've done before and move on. It really does. So, and Bill Simmons, just all the references to different things while he's covering sports. The dude will not. He always throws a movie reference in when he's trying to talk about a sports player. Like, oh, LeBron reminds me of this guy from this movie, and basically, Jordan really is the blank from this movie. And it's like, huh. Never thought of it that way, but that's probably the best way to analyze looking at those guys. It really is. So yeah, moving on to number 4. I love making top 10s. Yeah, I get it. Top 10s are usually a lazy form of content, but I actually love making top 10s. It's how my brain works. I'm constantly ranking things against each other. I could literally drop a top 10 list of people that I love right now. Don't worry, Ma, you're at number 1. Well, actually, maybe my sister would be number 1. Maybe my dad. I don't know. I'll let them compete, throw them in a little Hunger Games type tournament. Let them fight for my affection. It matters. All right, and number 3. I've got so many ideas for this podcast. These top 10s are just one idea. I've got like 5 others, and I want you to know that I will be experimenting with them all. And I want to make this known up front and in this first episode that I will be experimenting a lot with this podcast. This isn't... You guys really shouldn't come... I wouldn't say not to expect something from me, but know that this stuff can change at any time if I'm not feeling it. And of course, I'm going to take suggestions from you guys. I want you guys to know that basically this podcast is owned 51% by me and 49% to the people. I want you guys to know that you hold basically as big of a piece as I do in this, but I get the final say. But again, like, you guys hold such a big sway, of course I'm going to consult with you, I want this podcast to be as transparent as possible. I want you guys to know how I feel about a situation. I want to know how you guys feel about a situation. Especially in these early days, that's one of the things that I love about the idea that, there's not going to be a lot of people listening to me at first. And I get to build a connection with each and every one of you guys, because at this point, this is kind of a loyalty thing, And I'll leave it at that. But actually, that kind of speaks to point number 2. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not. I'm just some dude who bought a microphone, and has been dabbling in this for a couple of weeks. I'm not some brilliant dude. I didn't go to college for this. If there's mistakes that I make that you guys get frustrated with, please keep in mind that I don't do this professionally, but I do want to one day. And I will keep in mind that you guys don't have to listen to me, You can find some other podcast that's better. And I want you guys to know that I have a loyalty to you, and I hope you have the same loyalty to me, because I know that one day this will be the greatest podcast in existence. Mark my words, it will be. It'll be the greatest podcast in existence. You got the hardest working dude in the world with a bunch of ideas on how to make it better. And I want you guys to know that and stick around and help me out. That's it. You scratch my back, I scratch your back, In 2 or 3 years, you'll literally you can be one of those people who's like, wow, man, I was there when he only had 50 subscribers. Now he's got like 3 billion, like I'm like signing with like Disney Plus, and I get the Disney Plus deal, and you guys can complain and be like, well, man, he just hasn't been the same since he signed with Disney Plus and got that TV show. It's not as good, man. I miss Spotify BenAF. I miss Apple Podcast BenAF. Dude, you were there when he got on Apple? Loser. Wow, man, I've been there since he started uploading to YouTube. The real OG. And number 1, I'm a dork who makes a promise to the listener. And this is my final point. Yeah, I'm that kind of dude. I genuinely think that you guys deserve transparency and all that stuff, because it's a two-way street at this point. Like, I don't have the greatest content coming out, but what I do have is authenticity. Like, I'm going to be the most authentic dude you're probably going to listen to, all right? It's the truth. And aside from maybe not cussing because my grandma might listen to this, I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel about a situation. You're going to get one of the most nuanced people on a lot of things. I love looking at both sides of the argument because I feel like I can usually understand both sides. I'm it has always been my goal to be very empathetic and always try to understand both sides of a situation and come to the best mediation of both. Because I know everything's a two-way street. If you want to involve yourself with other people, you have to give, and you also have to be willing to take. You have to acknowledge that you can't give forever and you have to take at some point. And I get that. I understand that at this point, this podcast might sound like ass. It might. There might be a lot of ums and ahs. Those will be alleviated over time. This podcast will sound better over time. The podcast will become more refined over time. I just ask you to give me time, because this is the first thing I've really ever recorded. It's the first time I've ever put myself out there in front of people. And I just want you to know that you're on the ground floor of something special. All right? I just want to make that promise to you guys, that by the time that this is all said and done and over with, you will be able to say that you were at the ground floor of the greatest podcast that's ever existed. And that's it. That's my top 10 list. That was really fun to do. It's a little weird. It's only been 16 minutes because I don't know. For some reason, I just expected this to go longer. But if I don't need to hold your time for any longer, I'll just keep it there. And yeah, thank you for listening. That was insane. If you stuck around this long, it'd be cool if you checked me out on Twitter. And it'd be really cool if you subscribe to the podcast. It'd be really cool if you drop me a like. But heck, you don't owe me anything other than that view, because for some reason you gave it to me. Out of all the things you could have wasted about 17 minutes with, you chose me. And I gotta tell you, I want to repay you for that by making this the best podcast ever. And I don't want that to come off as hubris. It's honestly how I feel. I feel like I can deliver a product that's the greatest podcast ever, as long as you give me time to figure out how to make the greatest podcast ever. These things take time. And I think I've done well so far. But just wanted to say thank you for listening. And stay tuned for Thursday, where I actually get to cover a really serious topic. The George Floyd situation. And the fact that 2020 is the worst year on record. That probably sounds terrible. I'm sorry that I just subjected you to singing. I'll go ahead and leave. Again, just check me out on Twitter. Check me out on all of the social media stuff. It's my name, Benjamin Frazier. You'll see the face. You'll recognize it. It's just me it's me from my graduation picture in 2018. I was so young back then. Boy, do I wish I could go back to then. But thank you for listening. I'll see you guys later.